So I wanted to say that I really want to emphasize the interactiveness in this class. I really want everybody to have an opportunity to speak, be able to say their opinion, get their ideas out there, and just have a back and forth feel and engage each other and really have an interactive class so everybody's focused and engaged with it. And so today I want to start off by saying, let's see, who here likes snakes? Does anybody like snakes? Typically snakes are attributed with bad things. Most people, unless they're kind of strange, don't really like snakes. And so as I was thinking about that, well actually as I was reading Matthew 10:16, we'll go over there. It says, "Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves." I've always contemplated, why did he choose snakes to be there? What's y'all's thoughts? Why do you think that he said to be wise as a snake?
Even though they're usually seen as something negative in the Bible, they do have the attributes of cunningness and as it says here, wisdom, to be able to to hunt what they do. So it's not just being they're not dumb creatures or what have you, but they have to think through things. So we're to be just like that in a sense.
This is your mom and your sister?
Yes, my mom and sister.
I'll go get them.
Yes, I agree. Anybody else have some other thoughts they want to add on to that?
Well, if you just look at the physical world, how they're able to adapt to their environment. It doesn't matter if they're out in West Texas or they're in East Texas. They can adapt to their climate, and that's part of their I would think that worldly wisdom would be being able to adapt to whatever's around them.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And I especially think if you take what the context is in this scenario here, we see that this is when Jesus is sending forth his apostles. Go back up to verse 5. Starting about the middle, he says, "Go not into the way of the Gentiles and into any city in the Samaritans." I'll drop down. Verse 7. "And as ye go," verse 6. "But go rather to the lost sheep, the house of Israel. And as ye go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out devils. Freely ye have received, freely give, providing neither gold nor silver nor brass in your purse, nor script for your journey, neither two coats, neither shoes, nor yet staves, for the workman is worthy of his meat. And in whatsoever city or town ye shall enter, inquire who in it is worthy, and there abide till ye go thence." And so I agree. I think there's a big element there of the adaptability of the snake. And so on that note, I did a little bit of looking into snakes. I'm by no means an expert in snakes. Don't come to me and ask me questions about snakes. It's more likely I will not be able to tell you what to do with them. But I did look into them a little bit. And what I found was that when a snake enters this new territory, it is very purposeful in not making itself known. It wants to take the time to try to blend into its environment. It wants to scout out opportunities where it can hide, where it can take shelter, where it can set up an ambush for attack. It's very precise in what it does, and making sure that when it makes a move, it is with decision. Because when you really think about it, the snake, even though they are typically kind of scary looking, they're pretty vulnerable creatures. They don't move incredibly fast, given relatively to most animals. They are pretty exposed from anywhere from the back down to the tail. And so whenever they do decide to make a move, they need to make sure their move is calculated and is done with the most precise movement possible. And so I think that has a lot to do here as well in what we see. I also think if you think about some of the snakes that are poisonous, a snake doesn't always choose to use its venom when it attacks. Sometimes it just wants to scare off whatever it is. And its venom is very precious to them. It's not something they have an infinite amount of. It's finite. Once it's used up, it takes time to regenerate that venom. And so they want to make sure that whenever they use it up, it is for something that's going to actually be beneficial. I think about that in regards to Hebrews 4:12. We see here that the Word of God, go over there. You see here the Word of God is quick and powerful, sharper than any two-edged sword. It is, as a poison, is powerful, it's precise, and it's very accurate in what it does. And we need to make sure that whenever we do something with the Word of God, that we are also being precise, and we know when the best opportunity is to hit someone with that scripture that can get down to, as it says, dividing asunder the soul and the spirit and the joint and marrow. And so today I want to talk about purpose. I want us to think about what is purpose, what does it mean to have a purpose, and hopefully by the end of it we will have a better understanding of what it is that we should be doing whenever we interact with anything we do. And so, to continue on this thought, I want to go look at a couple examples. All right, so let me ask this. What are some examples that come to your mind whenever I say purpose in the Bible? Give me some examples of person or a situation where somebody showed that they had a purpose in what they did.
Say Noah. Noah when he built the ark.
Yes, that's a good example.
Even all the way back to Adam and Eve, they had a purpose in the garden, and their children. They had a purpose in the way that they worshipped.
Esther?
Yeah, going to the Noah example, Noah had, I forget the exact number, but he had 100 years to do that ark. Sometimes I would think about it like, I have 100 years to do this done, over 100 years to do this done. I can probably take a day off here and there and stuff like that. No, Noah was diligent. He was purposeful. He knew that every minute he had was important. And so he preached and he built the entire time he had those years available to him. So I think it's a very good example. Any other examples that come to mind? Esther? Okay. That's a good example. Do you want to divulge a little bit more, please?
Well, she protected her people from the planned murder of all of them by going to the king, and God used her to put her in the place at that time that she needed to be there so that she could present that to the king and save her people.
Yes, ma'am, yes. Very good. Any other examples that come to mind?
Well, the rebuilding of the temple and the wall after the captivity, that was a great deal of purpose and very exactness. This family a long period of time as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I forget the exact verse, but I know it talks about that they had a sword in one hand and a hammer in the other. They were ready to build and also to protect at the same time, being very careful in how they proceeded through the day. An example that came to my mind that I always think about when it comes to a purpose is John 6:36. You always want to go there. This is Jesus talking. He says, "But I said unto you that ye also have seen me not." Sorry. Verse 37, I'm going down. "All that the Father giveth me shall come to me, and him that cometh to me I will in no wise cast out. For I came down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him that sent me." And so, I think that is one of the best examples we can see of purpose in the Bible. We can get caught up in the minutiae of the day-and-day world and confuse our own personal desires, our own personal wants, and forget that what's important. Jesus says here that it is not his will that he's trying to do. It's not some self-gratification he's looking for. It's not some grandiose thing he's looking to fulfill. He is only looking to do the will of the Father. And I think we need to keep that in mind as we go on. Going on, I like to say, does anyone here own a business? I know at least one person has a business here. Any of those businesses, and I'm sure if you don't have a business, I'm sure you've worked with businesses that have this. The businesses usually have a mission statement and a vision statement. What is the reason for that?
To show your purpose.
Show your focus. What did you say?
Show your purpose.
Show your purpose. And so, does anybody, I guess I'll give a quick definition I found for a mission statement is the definition of the company's business, who serves, what it does, its objectives, its approach to reaching those objectives. The vision statement is a description of the desired future state of the company. An effective vision inspires a team, showing them how success will look and feel. And so today I want to ask, do we have a mission statement and a vision statement for ourselves? And if so, what does it look like? What would be a good Christian's mission statement?
You could go to Ecclesiastes 12:13. I mean, fear God and keep His commandments. The Great Commission would be a good one. Ephesians 3:10, 3:10, about making manifest the glory of the church is to basically bring the glory of God to the world.
I think that those are all very good examples. Anybody else have some ideas? I see Mike contemplating over there. So hey, no pressure. Don't pressure. That's what you're thinking. While he thinks, I'll offer this. I think a good example also we see it's in regards to the Old Testament, but it's a summation of the entire Old Testament and what was purposeful for them. We see verse 36 of Matthew 22. We see this Jew comes to him and asks, Master, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the laws and the prophets. We see here that Jesus does not go and pick one of the 10 commandments out. He doesn't go through there and list all the 10 commandments. Instead, he summarizes the importance of the 10 commandments and what they truly stood for. Love thy God and keep His commandments. Love thy neighbor as thyself. I think that this is a pretty decent idea to a mission statement for ourselves. We need to love God and keep His commandments for ourselves. And in doing so, we will have love for our neighbors and the desire for them as well to come to this fold. 1 Corinthians 13:13, and it says, Now abideth faith, hope, charity, these three, but the greatest of these is charity. All this is done in love. All this is done out of love because it is the most powerful thing that we have. God has shown us His love for us, and we ourselves need to show our love for those that are not in the fold, that God desires to have be here with us. And so, with that being said, what do y'all think a good vision statement would be? What do we look for as we go into the future?
I think of Paul at the end of his life. He said, I fought a good fight, kept the faith. There's now my future, and it's near. A crown laid up for me, of righteousness. But it's not just for me; it's for all those who love His appearing. Meaning that if you maintain these goals, if you do finish the race, if you do fight the good fight, keep the faith, then your future will look like this, and you can't attain it. Looks like heaven.
Yeah, very good. Anybody else got some other ideas as well?
It's kind of a different idea on that, but whether vision or mission statement, one of the biggest problems that some companies get into is that they deviate from it. And it's when there's a deviation from that, it goes into an area where their strength is not. And I mean, we can make a very clear deviation from this when we get away from, the Bible says to do this, nothing more, nothing less. Yeah, but if we add this in, I bet it's really going to improve things. It's not in there. Or we're going to trim a little bit more of it. So that's really the same problem, whether in business or in a bigger sense, spirituality, if you add or take away.
Yes, sir. Yeah, no, that's a great point. Vision statement helps us to stay focused. And I think it also helps as we see the Bible to bring back into remembrance. It's very easy as we get busy in life and busy with everything, whether it be business or spirituality, that we can become distracted and lose focus of where it is that we were intending to be and intending to go. And so I think that is also one of the importance of having a mission statement and a vision statement, is that it helps us to recenter, to come back and like say, okay, this is what we thought originally, and this is what we need to get back to, or even this is what we thought originally. Let us reanalyze it. Let us study, make sure that this is correct, that this is where we want the business to go, where we want it to be in the future as well. Anybody else has some ideas?
Well, for vision statement, again, looking back at Paul, if you look in Philippians 1, verses 19 through 26, we see in verse 21, Paul says, to die is gain. It's a beautiful thing that once he came to this point that he desired to be joined with Christ, as he talks about in the passage, but he says, I'm concerned with my brethren. I'm here to produce good works, to continue on this church, make sure that the next generation will have somebody to teach them the foundations. And so, that's another thing I say this, young, but it's interesting to look at the future of the church, the next generation, be able to teach them.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's very good. I often think about, especially when we start talking about next generations, I think about the transition over from go to Joshua 24. Let's see here. We see in Joshua, he tells them that they this day need to decide who it is they're going to serve, and who it is their family is going to serve. And then we go down and we go through Judges, we see that, actually even Judges, oh, sorry. I forget where it's at, but that's about the verse where it says that it rose to the generation that did not do as their fathers. And we see that it's very quickly that it was only a couple generations removed before they started to fall away and started to fall deep into sin. And so, yes, we need to make sure to keep at the forefront that we are taking the time to be diligent with our children, that we are careful in what we do and how we teach them. And so I think it's a very good point. Anybody else have some ideas? So with that said, now that we have a general synopsis of a vision statement and a mission statement, I think now we need to take time to think about how we are interacting with people. When we do this, if our mission statement is to obviously do the will of the Father, to love thy neighbor, to bring them into the fold with the vision of eventually as many people inheriting the kingdom of God, then we need to make sure that when we are interacting with somebody, that we are purposeful in how we do so. If we go over to John 4, we can see Jesus, and I think it's a great example of him being very precise, very diligent in how he conducts himself. We see that, starting in verse 5, then cometh he to the city of Samaria, which is called near to the parcel of the ground of Jacob, that ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus saith unto her, Give me to drink. So we see Jesus starts his interaction with the woman at the well very diligently. He wasn't going up there and immediately going to, as we see down further, accusing her of having had multiple husbands and the sin that caused. No, he started the conversation by, give me to drink. And we see as we go down further, Jesus is being precise in his words. He's taking her from the physical aspect of herself and slowly moving her to the spiritual aspect. We see Jesus said and answered her, starting in verse 10, If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, Give me to drink, thou wouldst asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. So here we see that Jesus takes the idea from physical water and he moves it over to the living water. Which of course piques her interest as she's digging in now. And as time goes on, he's getting more and more. Verse 13, whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again, speaking of the physical. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. Verse 15, the woman saith unto him, Sir, give me this water. We see that because of Jesus, the way he formatted his argument, it was very compelling to her. She still is partially thinking of the physical. So she's thinking, well, if I can drink this water and never thirst again, that's wonderful. But of course, Jesus is talking spiritually. And as we go further and further, Jesus is going to continue to drive her further into spirituality. Jesus is very purposeful in what he did. And so I contend today for us that we ourselves, when we interact with somebody, we need to know what our purpose is in doing so. Whenever we talk to someone, or let's say we get into an argument with someone, are we there to win the argument? Or are we there to win them over, to show them the right way? I think a lot of times we can get caught up in the glory of winning an argument, the satisfaction that it gives to have won an argument and to say that, well, I'm justified now. What I have done and what I've said is justified because I obviously showed that person. But how does that person feel now? Were they accepting of that argument, or did they just get put in submission where they don't want to be there anymore? Are they going? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's a book on marriage, and there's a phrase in there. They said you can be right at the top of your lungs, and it said, yes, you can be right, but what did you do? Did you actually build anything? Was that your intent? And really, when we get into a discussion or an argument, whatever you're talking about there, is that is your intent of reconciliation? Is your intent of growth for a weaker brother? Is it your intent of taking a non-Christian and bringing them to a knowledge of the truth? What is your intent behind it? And as you started in 1 Corinthians 13:13, it should be love. That should be our motivation in doing those things.
Yes, sir. And so, I think, there's a time and place for everything. There's a time when we need to be harsh. We need to make sure that we state the truth as plain as possible, and if that person isn't accepted, then that's on them. But there also is an aspect to influence, and knowing that if I am not able to convince them today of this, I don't want to damage relationships so that in the future I cannot convince them later on of it again. And so, with that being said, I think that we need to make sure that we are being very careful in how we interact with people, and make sure that whenever we interact with somebody, we have a game plan in our head. And I will say this, I think that we need to get to know someone. It's hard to, me and Mikey talked about this, it's hard to be convincing and be compelling to somebody that you don't know. I don't know what this person's going through. I don't know what it is that makes this person tick. And just as Jesus didn't start off with spirituality, he got to know her through the water and knew that this was something that would work for her. We ourselves need to be also thinking about that and how we interact with somebody. When I talk to somebody, I don't always start with Bible. Sometimes I just want to get to know them. What is it that they like? What is it that they are interested in? What is it they've been hurt by? What is the baggage that they have? Some of that stuff has to be unraveled before you can actually continue along the study. Otherwise, you may run into a snag early that almost seems impassable. But if you build a rapport, you build a relationship with them, you can overcome that over time. And hopefully that is. Sometimes it is not the case, but hopefully. But I know me and Michael Baker were talking this weekend that we've interacted with people and it's been unsuccessful. But it didn't end on a bad note. It didn't end with us, well, I'm done. I'm never gonna convert ever. Y'all are crazy. It ended with just I just can't get there right now. And that's fine. And it's sad to see, but I'll take that over complete rejection because at least there's the opportunity to come back to them in the future and re-engage them and still have the rapport with them that you can re-engage and end the conversation, hopefully with time and with thought they will have reconsidered and be in a better position then to go ahead.
I know you're talking about this specifically in the sense of evangelism, but it also crosses over into communication through our relationships. I still learn things about my wife and the reason why she acts in a certain way. And I approach it in that way, in a more understanding way. I try to, at least. And come at it from there instead of just, lashing out in my words. I think that's the idea. Ephesians chapter 4, I believe it is, talking about using words that's good to the use of edifying. The intent is always to build each other up. And so that's not just evangelism, that's marriage, that's business relationships, friends, even kids. A guy told me the other day, he said if you talk to your kids like they're a curse, they're going to know that they're a curse. If you talk to your kids like they're a blessing, they're going to recognize that they're a blessing. So it's all of our relationships and all of our communication.
It's a very, very point. And so with that, I don't want to just focus on evangelism, even though that is very important. What are other, I guess it's still semi, but it also, good works. I've been contemplating good works for a while now, thinking about how I can do some good works in my community. So what is a purpose, what should our purpose be whenever we go into the world to do good works? I'll leave that as an open question for y'all to answer, or at least to get some insight on.
Bring glory to God.
Bring glory to God?
Ultimately, to try to teach them the gospel.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Very good.
Meet their physical needs and then their spiritual needs.
Yes, ma'am. And I want to hit on that physical need aspect. Obviously, of course, spiritual need is the end goal we want to get into. But there's a lot of people in this world that are suffering. And it's not just in the physical aspect of not eating or not having a home. Some are suffering emotionally, not feeling a connection, not feeling they belong somewhere. And so, whenever we're going to talk to someone, or whenever we're going to do good works, I want to know, what does that person need? What is it that they need this moment? Do they need a community? Do they need a place they can come to and feel a connection and feel like they're wanted? And if that's the case, then how can we fulfill it for them? Obviously, bringing them into the church would be a wonderful place for that. And so I've been thinking about the idea of community work as well. And once somebody, I know some people that they're members of the church and they come Sunday, they come Wednesday, but they're not engaged. But I've seen them when they interact, when they do some good deeds. Their entire demeanor, it lights up. They're engaged, they're happy, they're smiling. Some people need that. Some people need to feel like they're needed for service. And so, what is our purpose whenever we do good works, whenever we are trying to do good? Sometimes it's to find out what that person needs, and sometimes it is to facilitate that need. And so, again, what are some more ways that we can do this?
It takes just being proactive. You get up in the morning, you're like, I'm going to go out today. I see the same person when I go get my coffee. I need to make this is someone I need to pray over. In the past, we've taken up names of people that, we're going to reach out to this person. You're not going to accidentally teach someone the gospel. It's never going to happen that way. Therefore, get to know them. And usually within a very short amount of time, you can figure out what they're struggling with. Obviously, Jesus knew, when he got there, but at the same time, he did something very startling, socially, culturally, everything shocking to this woman, got her attention. Well, we don't have that ability that he has, but at the same time, your life is different. I want to know more about that. Okay. And you haven't even done anything. You just, by your example, have done something, and then it can segue into getting to know them, as well as then get to actually teach them.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I agree. I think that a lot of people in the world, even though they'll pretend to be happy with what they're doing, they're partying, drinking, and they're having fun in the moment. But whenever that person starts to self-analyze themselves, usually there's something that is off. They don't feel complete. They feel lacking. And so, showing them our example of how we live, what it is to be, show them the better example of life. I think that is important. So I do agree. That's a great point. Anybody else has some more ideas?
I think the things that you were mentioning, the need to belong, the need to have a purpose, to have a community, those are things that everybody needs. That God created that need in all of us, and through Him, through His Son, through the church is the only way it's ever fulfilled in anyone. But we can look at anybody in the world and say, you need that,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
like I do.
Yeah, Genesis, it is not good for man to be alone, so God made Eve for Adam. It's very good.
Ephesians 2:10, we're created to be his workmanship. We go against our very design and nature if we're not working for him.
Mm-hmm. And so I think that also is a great point. People are going to start something. And I know y'all have heard that before. But people are going to start something. Even atheists who think that there is nothing out there, that life is but a blur and then it all ends. They are still serving something. We are designed to serve something. And so that desire is out there for people. And it needs to be fulfilled. And in a lot of places, it's not being fulfilled. So when that's the case, I like to think about what is it that we can do to fulfill that need. How is it that we can go about and satisfy that desire to be a part of, to serve something. Again, they can say, the idea of servitude, but also ultimately getting them to the church and getting them involved with the congregations. Anybody else have further ideas?
I think about an example of Jesus when he fed 5,000, but then he also turned around and washed his disciples' feet privately. So there's an aspect of doing things communally, but there's also an aspect of doing things privately. It is a service to have somebody in your home. It is a service to do something for someone and nobody else know about it. That person is impacted. And so it doesn't have to be like these big programs and, that's how many people can we get in the door, but making an impact with one person is also beneficial.
I'd say more effective in a lot of cases because it shows personal attention to an individual rather than a mass.
Yeah. And so, as we start getting close to the end here, I'll go off that idea. How are we serving one another? How are we being purposeful with one another? And what are we paying attention to each other? Do we know what each one of us is in need of? I know myself. I fall guilty of not being good in that scenario. There's sometimes I get caught in my own little bubble, and that I'm doing stuff, and I don't even see that person over there is not really talking to anybody. They're not really hanging out with anybody, or maybe I'm talking to somebody. And I know they're kind of saying something strange over and over again, and it's something that's lacking. So how can we be more purposeful with each other and diligent each other, make sure that we're encouraging each other, we're edifying one another, and that we are helping each other as well, since ultimately we want to be people in the church, but once they're here, we don't want to leave them on the wayside. We don't want to pass them off and just be like, go fend for yourself. So how can we be more purposeful with one another?
Like Jeremy said earlier, it's an intentional decision that you have to make. I think it's something that we've visited about a lot as a congregation. Being as small as we are, we know each other well. And so it starts with that personal one-on-one being in each other's lives more than just Sunday, Wednesday, same.
Yes, ma'am. Anybody else have some more ideas?
Well, with what you first started with love, if you don't have love, then you don't have anything. The second greatest command, love your neighbor as yourself. Are you going to treat your neighbor ugly? I mean, the people sitting in this room right here, are we going to be ugly to them? You have to bring it home and you have to make it personal.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way that it will work. And it all starts with that love aspect. If you don't love yourself enough to want to know the gospel and want to be saved, how are you going to love somebody else to spread that news to them? So I think a lot of times we don't worry about fixing ourselves first. We worry about trying to fix everybody else. But there's plenty of examples, we're supposed to take the plank out of our eye before we can go tell anybody else about the speck in their eye. And it starts with the love. We have to love ourselves enough to fix ourselves so that we can go out and try to help others.
Yes, sir. That's very good. I think that the importance of also being open. People are going to come in here and they're going to have baggage. There are going to be things that they struggle with. There are going to be things that they do that we don't agree with. And we need to make sure that we are not necessarily accepting of those things that they're wrong, but that we are working with them to get them on the right path. Not just berating them, you're wrong for doing that. You need to completely cut it out of your life. Most people cannot stop cold turkey. There are some individuals I have seen that are able to very impressively stop cold turkey. But a lot of people come in, and it's going to take time to unpack all that baggage and unravel it all. But by the end of it, with love, you can hopefully have one brother over.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what towards Billy said. We're still working with ourselves. We're all still striving for sanctification and being better. You may see someone else look at all the baggage they have. Well, look at the baggage that we have, even still to this day. And the Lord is merciful to us, and so we of course want to give mercy so we can receive mercy, like you said, not just accepting the lifestyle, but we gotta take the time with people and get to know why and all those things work.
Great. Yeah, I agree. And finally, going off of that again, are we being personal with ourselves? Are we self-analyzing ourselves? When we're studying, are we applying it to ourselves? How are we doing whenever we are by ourselves and we need to be purposeful? We need to be purposeful. Like I said, so my summation in all of this today is that we need to be purposeful in every aspect of life. Whenever you get up, you need to be purposeful. Whenever you're praying to God, you need to be purposeful. Whenever you're talking to somebody, whether it's for an evangelism's sake or for doing good or just to get to know someone, you need to be purposeful. Every aspect of life needs to be purposeful. We go over, as we conclude, over to Colossians 4, starting in verse 6. Paul here says, "Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that ye may know how ye ought to answer every man." We also see in this, we see in verse 3, "With all praying also for us, that God would open unto us a door of utterance to speak the mystery of Christ, for which I am also in bonds." We do not need to be praying for a door of utterance if we do not know how we're going to approach somebody. We need to make sure that whenever we approach somebody, whenever we get that opportunity, that we are ready to do so with our, as it says in verse 6, speech being with grace, seasoned with salt, and knowing how we ought to answer everybody. And so today, like I said, just concluding it all, we need to be purposeful in every aspect of life. And so as we hopefully leave here today, I want us to think about how we can be more purposeful, what can we do, and how can we interact in a manner that is going to fulfill that. And so that's all I have for right now. Unless anybody has any comments or questions they want to continue